Welcome to Moving Forward. If you've been watching, we thank you for staying with us. If you've just joined us, you are watching a program produced by the Bay and Grandstand Advancement Association to discuss issues that would help to move this nation forward. I'm your host, Reverend C.B. Moss, and we've got three distinguished guests this evening. Mrs. Gladys Johnson-Sands, Dr. Sandra Dane Patterson, and Nurse Larry Miller. Just before the break, we were talking about the home and its importance, and we're going to ask Nurse Miller to make a contribution to that, saying that as a nurse, you have, and especially in the community nursing area, you have spent a lot of time around homes.
Okay, yes, I do concur with what both of my fellow guests have said in terms of parents being totally responsible for what happens with their children in terms of their upbringing and all that. But I go further out in being a community nurse, where you go into homes or where you have to deal with a large number of teenage mothers. And I feel we have a lot of problems in that regard. My heart goes out, and I have a special just feeling for that group. Because teenage mothers, and then many times they're left on their own to bring up these children, because sometimes they're also from very young mothers. So gone are the days when we have the village raising the child, or you have the grandmother in the home who can help to raise the child, because that grandmother is out at work, so she can't deal with the child, and then the mother has to try to look out for something to look after herself. So here again, where we end up with our problems in many instances, where our children suffer. I'm not saying that only children of teenage mothers have problems, but we know a large number of cases, in this regard. And I'm looking at getting toward our men, and also getting toward our young women to influence our men, because in many instances they can influence the men. So here it is now. We have our teenage mothers, we have young fathers, or sometimes older fathers. And the community now has to looking at this group, teaching them parenting skills, teaching them sometimes just general things about self-esteem in order to get our women to be able to raise these children successfully. And in this case, I think our community has to play a greater role. Looking at the community of Baintown, we have a large number of teenage mothers in our communities. And I just feel that reaching out to them, just say maybe reaching out to our young men, reaching out to them and mentoring them would help in many ways to help our young men to maybe not resort to crime.
Well, you talk about the fact that young women should influence the men. Truth is, they influence them now to a large degree. We should encourage them to influence them, toward positive ends. Because women just have that unique ability to influence, you see. Men may have power, but women have influence. And from my experience, given a choice, I'll take the influence. I'll take the influence, because sometimes you can't even tell you're being influenced by them. And that's what makes it so important. Our women need to become more actively engaged in this problem, starting with their own children, starting with ensuring that their children are not engaged in criminal activities. And many of our women, they know. Child is not working, they're bringing home valuables, they're hanging out with certain crowds, they know. So the first step, in my opinion, is for mothers to take control of their homes as it relates to their children. That's it. Set a time and a standard of behavior that you shouldn't compromise. What you have to say about that?
No, I do feel, that is important, because like I said before, where we have a lot of one-parent families, that woman has to be strong. She has to be strong. She has to set the standard. Not only say, but be in at a certain time. Be the example, like was previously mentioned, in order to successfully, raise boys or girls.
I'd like to interject when it comes to parenting, because I consider myself to be a middle-aged parent. I'm not quite young, and I'm not old. But what I feel is that there's pressure on parents, especially today, and younger mothers,
Yes.
Who try to befriend their children.
Yes.
Like, you want to speak to them, you want a positive relationship, a working relationship with your children, but you have to draw the line where you understand that you are the authority, first of all, and the child is the child. And even though when our children are growing up, and usually in the teenage years, you find that in adolescence and when they become teenagers, that's when they really start to display deviant behavior, or if they are going to start to be problematic, you'd see it. And I think that is when the parent must then be firm, but not abusive, be firm, and know that they have the right to find out exactly what that child is doing. Like when my children were in school, for instance, I had no problem in checking your school bag. I have to know.
That's important.
I need to know what you're involved in. I need to know who your friends are. And in one instance, and parents see things. They recognize changing behavioral patterns in children. So my son had a friend, my youngest son had a friend, and when I saw the young man, I told him outright, I said, "That's not your friend." So he was like, "Well, you always act a little odd, but this is unusual." "What do you mean it's not? He is my friend." I said, "No, he's not, because I recognize the behavior of that particular child, and that was not someone I wanted to be in company with my son."
That's right.
So I simply, quickly and very, very sternly let them know, "I think you'll get into trouble. You're going the wrong way. You need to turn around." And so I think parents have to take that kind of role, and it must be proactive. You can't wait until something happens and then interject or start to try to correct the situation. I think, and we have to recognize that the parent role gives you the right. And then that is love. I don't think love is, I make you happy by relenting and allowing you to do whatever you want to do.
Or giving you everything you want. Yes.
No, I don't believe in that. I believe that if I love you, I don't want to see you hurt. I don't want to see you misguided and destroyed. I want the best for you. And in doing that, I'm showing love. That's my position.
And that's why it's so important for parents to know the friends that their children have. I always tell parents, encourage your children to bring their friends around or show you their friends or introduce you, because that way you can then get an idea as to who they're friendly with and whether or not, as you did with your son, this is an appropriate, this is a healthy, this is a good relationship for them to be involved in.
Yes.
In many instances, you may be able to help that friend who may be going the wrong way.
Exactly.
You can get that friend to turn around.
But if you don't let them come to your house, or if you don't let them, you won't know.
No,
That's right.
you won't.
And it's also important for parents, and in this case mothers, because historically mothers are the ones who attend PTAs. Not that fathers should not, because we encourage fathers in our community. As a matter of fact, we offer little token prizes to fathers to attend their PTA meetings. But mothers should be very engaged, very active. You have to know what's happening in the school life of your child. We always say that God didn't give the Ministry of Education any children. God gave the children to the parents.
That's why it was so disappointing to hear the Minister of Education say on the news this week that they've implemented after-school classes for children who are behind or need some extra help, and our children are not taking advantage of it.
Yes.
They're paying teachers to be behind after school, and our children aren't taking advantage of it. And that's where parents come in, you know, because if you go in and you see your child's report, you see the grades, then you know that they need that extra. And if the ministry is providing it, you should be encouraging your children to take advantage of that.
May we suggest to the Ministry of Education that perhaps they should seek an ally in community groups, community entities, those that are active. And I say that because over the years we have met and held dialogue with the Ministry of Education from the time the Honorable Carl Bethel was minister, the Honorable Desmond Bannister, and even the current minister. And, well, as we said, God didn't give the ministry any children, and we made that clear to all of them by way of saying to them that the parents must become more involved in their child's education. And parents must do that, and it must be led by the mother, because generally many fathers are either out of the house through work or for whatever reason. The mother has to make sure she get those children ready in the morning. She has to know that they are going to school and what they're doing. And even if the fathers do not communicate with the schools, mothers would have to. I just see it that way, because it is not more their responsibility than the father, but since they are the ones, that's a fait accompli. It's already a fact. Then they have to, while encouraging fathers, but they have to become more engaged in the school life of their child. You know, we have a lot of children that come to our afternoon program, which Mrs. Ferguson alluded to. You ask them, why you go to school? Oh, because mommy said I must go to school. They do not have a full appreciation of the relationship between going to school and their long-term future. And that's what we must do. We must get them to understand that they're not going to school because mommy says so. They're not going to school because they're being threatened by the school. They're going to school for their own benefit. And that's what we are trying to teach our youngsters. You might want to talk about that program.
Yes, I think it's fairly new just now, but there's a group of students out of Woodcock Primary, 40 students, young men, all boys, and accompanied by teachers. So they come every Wednesday evening from 3:30 to 4:30, and they're so enthused and they look forward. And the last speaker we had, they just wanted him back. We're not going into schoolwork because they've been at school all day. We try to teach life, like life skills. What happens around the Bahamas? Some social studies. You know, what do you know? How do you feel? What do you think about certain things? And that's what we're trying to go with them, just to get our pulse on what's happening with our young boys. And we're looking forward to having a really good time with that program.
Well, it's not a new program. It's just been revived since Women Against Crime has been established in Baytown. The program is a couple of years old. We have been taking kids from all of the primary schools. We used to take boys on Mondays and girls on Wednesdays. And we would have presenters come in and do exactly what she's saying with them, teaching us just social skills. You know, how you should dress, why you should dress that way, how you should behave in public. We sometimes assume that because we may have received this at home, that everybody is getting it at home. That's not the case. And the program went along very well until we lost the sort of director. Director is a volunteer, and that's why it's so difficult working with volunteers. You'll have a program running very well, because as she said, the program ran from 3:30 to 4:30, and for half an hour the presenter would present. And it's not a formal, structured presentation, just life, you know. And the second half hour, they would interact with the kids would ask questions, and thereafter they would get a light snack because they came directly from school, and they would go on the way home. But once
That's a powerful
I know.
mechanism.
Oh, we've
if that
proven it.
could be replicated in each community where
That's what
kids
we are
can
saying.
just come right after school, that could really make a big difference.
That's what we are saying. And you see, we discuss what they want to discuss. It's not an academic program. Even though we have school assistants, it's another program, a smaller program. But we've had this program going for years, and the students just eat it up. But you know what happened? When a presenter doesn't show up and we have nobody to substitute or to follow up, then the attendance begin to dwindle because they're not sure anybody's going to be there, kind of thing. When you're working with volunteers, it's a problem. And that's what I'm saying. The Ministry of Education, and all of the ministries actually, should be dialoguing with these community groups, because they may be able to give a stipend to somebody who will ensure that the program goes on. We provide the administration. We provide the facilities. All they need to do, and we provide the snacks. All they need to do is to provide somebody who will consistently be there to organize. And so this program that operated very well for about 2 years went down because the director was not able to continue. We now revived it under Women Against Crime. And we just hope that the same thing does now, because so many communities have that same story, good programs, but when it either declines or collapses, it's always more difficult reviving it later on, because the kids say, oh man, that's the same old thing, we've been there. So they're doing a good job on this new program, and we're inviting viewers who may wish to just come and talk to the kids. You don't have to prepare anything. If you have done well and you have succeeded, we want you to tell the kids. If you've done not so well,
Right.
you've done not so well.
This is not what we want.
Encourage them so
Right.
they can understand where not to go.
If you've done not so well, and you need not be from our community, you can be from anywhere,
Yeah.
and just come in. Listen, the kids, it's amazing. At the end of the they don't want to go. They just, because we assume they know so much, but they really know so little. They know so little, and so that's one program that we are hoping that the women of our community, and that's driven by our women now, can really keep going. And you know, once our women decide to get behind something, there's usually that persistency that sometimes is not there with men. We've got a few men volunteering in different areas, but we have found that that woman, once they're committed, that they really are there. Then now we come to the wider community. You know, we live in a community now where people adopt the attitude, well, I don't want to get involved. They become isolated in their own homes or their own interests, and they say, oh, I'm not going to say anything to that church, because you know, people crazy. You say something to the child and they cuss you out. We're saying that our women must step just beyond their personal interests in their homes and look toward the wider community and how they can assist. We're going to discuss that when we return from this very short break. Don't go away, folks. We're going to be right back.
Only love can save us now.